this morning, which is a little bit odd. Hi, Frankie. Finally, I think I got it working. I've had definitely some internet problems this morning. Oh, Kelly, I can see you now too. Hello. I can't actually see you, Frankie, so I don't know if you're actually on. It says waiting for what else? Yes, waiting for you to join. So I just want to say it doesn't matter that it's just a few of us here, because I just want to start, and hopefully this time I'll be able to record it, and maybe some other people will join us as well. But Kelly, I didn't think you were going to be able to be here, so it's nice that you're here. I did want to talk to you about your creativity. This is going to be a great conversation. So because this is a recording, I will do it as if there's lots of people on here as well. So last week was really interesting, and I had a lot of fun doing this. I was a little bit daunted by all the people that I saw that were like so many friends from all over the world, and my cousins and my nieces and friends that I haven't seen in so long. So it was fantastic that actually, happened. And so this time I actually wanted to make sure that I said hi to everybody that was actually on. But today, now it's telling me that Frankie's not able to join. So let's just try that one again. There we go. Send request. There we go. Now I hope that works. These technical things are kind of interesting when it comes to Instagram. But anyway, there she is, the beautiful Frankie Watt. Hello. Not only beautiful, but totally talented. So she's here now, but I'm going to actually introduce her and talk about a little bit about creativity, and then we're going to dive into really some amazing conversations that I know that we have had over the years about a certain piece of art. Oh, and I've got to go and get the piece of art as well. I forgot to bring that out from the room. Anyway, so creativity, it's an important part. I recognized last week when I started to go over some of the subjects about, that I was hoping to do in the future, that creativity really came out as one of the really big ones for me. And because it's very personal. We all express our creativity in so many different ways. I know people that express it through food and baking and cooking amazing things. That is so not my level of creativity. Everyone will tell you I can't do that. I don't express it in the way of calling myself an artist in any way, but I know so many people that do. And I recognize creativity in all of us. It's an innate part of our humanity, I think, and being human. But we all express it so differently. And yet it's all an emotional process for all of us. And it's all an expression of the essence and the soul of who we are, really. So, mine, I think, is more, I love to decorate, and I kind of wake up every day and do something creative. And I'm crafty. I love to do crafts, whether it's quilts or stained glassing or cards or whatever it is that I'm making at the time. And one of my favorite things is crafting with my granddaughter, doing button art, which I know that we've done as well, Frankie, a few times just for the fun of it.
We have.
Yes, we have. But I think that creativity is a big subject. I mentioned, and I hope this is okay that I say this about my daughter-in-law when we first met 16 years ago. I think one of the first things I said to her is, no matter what you label yourself as, whether you're a wife, whether you're a mama, whatever it is that you're becoming, whatever it is you morph into, don't lose that being in touch with the creativity, because that's part of who we are as human beings, is that. And I know that my daughter-in-law, all my daughter-in-laws express their creativity in different ways, same as my sons, and we're all different that way. And I think that exploring that and how we actually express that is what's really important. My daughter-in-law, the one I'm talking about, who's actually on and joined us, she is an amazingly gifted photographer. Absolutely amazing. Her whole soul comes in. She creates magical moments. I call her our family memory keeper. But she's also creative in lots of other ways as well. Whether it's the Christmas tree, whether it's the decorating, whether it's whatever it is I think life is just a creative process for a lot of us, and how we express, that. The reason I wanted to talk about it was because I've had such amazing experiences talking about all of this for 15 years with one of my really good friends whom I love and adore so much, because she inspires me to really look at some of these things very differently. And her art has really touched me in ways that is like surprising and taught me so much. So Frankie Watt-Elphinstone is from Ephin Art, and she is really one of the most gifted artists, and I do call her an artist, she is an artist, that I've ever met. And the reason I see her as really unique in terms of expressing creativity, and we talk about this a lot, so you know, she's going to tell me and make sure I'm on the right track with this, but her art, since I've met her, from coming from the UK, moving here, that's a big change, moving internationally, as I know myself. And life processes that happen, losses, joys, changes, babies, you know, losing people in our lives, whether it's parents or whatever, we all deal with that in different ways. But what's brilliant about what I've noticed about what she does, as you can recognize a lot of people's art. Ross Penhall, you can recognize one of his pieces. You know, you can look at a Monet or a Manet or a Gauguin or a Van Gogh, any of those, and you go, oh yeah, you know, or any of the Sevens or a Tony Only. You can tell that's their art. There's a theme. It all kind of has a similarity. And she's going to tell you a little bit more about that, the gift and the curse of that. But what I've noticed is that with each personal process with Frankie, her art changes and she explores different mediums and different ways to express the personal process through her art. And to me, I just find that like such a gift. I think it's an incredible gift. And I've just noticed that her art it has themes, and she'll tell you more about that, the themes, and it integrates certain aspects all the way through, but they're all completely different. There's, you know, the first ones I saw were this beautiful timelines of old pictures in the family, and that went with a personal process, and then it morphed into these amazing photographs, like art that just totally impacted me emotionally. And one of them we're going to actually talk about, if I can nip back and get the piece of art because I forgot, about sisters and womanhood. And then it morphed into a series about masks. And then it morphed into another different series. And they're all completely different. Her circles, and they tap into everything that's personal and important that she's going through at the time. So I'm going to invite her now to tell us a little bit about her, you know, in terms of her artistic creative expression, because it's all exceedingly personal, and kind of ending with a really special project this Christmas a little bit, because it's been really fun, and it's been another very big emotional process, hasn't it?
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and now you started in the UK in Cambridge as a portrait.
I did. Well, just going back to thinking about what you were just saying.
Yeah.
This term artist, I think it's if you go back, I'm thinking about something like cave paintings, or when you go back in time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody listening's seen the caves at Lascaux in France, which are 22,000 years old. And you see these paintings of animals galloping across the cave walls.
Right, I've seen pictures.
But completely amazing, and really full of expression, full of emotion, and really probably haven't been surpassed, you know, in our art history. But those people wouldn't necessarily have called themselves artists. You know, the term artist sort of seems to set you apart from the rest of everybody else. But I think the need to create and the expression that you put into creation is a totally human activity. And even recently I was reading that they found some evidence of Neanderthal art now. So this is the need to create, the need to express your emotional or inner world seems to be very much tied in with consciousness and how we need to communicate and express what's going on for us and communicate those ideas to other people. So I think that goes back way beyond the term artist as a sort of formal term is used, and so anybody who's doing anything creative could call themselves an artist, as far as I'm concerned. And so I think the idea of art for art's sake really came about after the sort of religious, you know, if you go back into the Renaissance, the artists working there were really working for religious purposes, or they were being commissioned to do certain pieces of work for a purpose. So they were really craftsmen of their day, and exceptionally brilliant craftsmen, but nevertheless that would have been what they were called. It wasn't until later that you get this idea of art for art's sake, and the artist in his garret and suffering for his art and all this kind of thing. So I think everybody out there who's doing something creative can call themselves an artist. So I want to kind of just get that out of the way, really.
No, and that's a really good point. And you're always telling me that, and I'm always going, oh yeah, like I really am. As I try to do something, but I'm a crafter for sure. But I'm not doing an Italian ceiling, you know, in a church in Italy.
No, and you know, but then you think of the women in the past who were doing the needlework and the sewing and the quilting, as you've talked about, and that's all so creative. Even bringing up children is creative. You know, you're thinking of new things every day. It's the most creative thing you can do. Gardening, you know, all that kind of stuff. Working in your yard and just planting a few seeds, and I've been doing that this summer, as you know, and just watching them grow. I think that's the most creative thing I could do, really. It's the most satisfying. It's like, wow, I made that happen, and it really,
I love it. It's so true.
So, yeah. You know, there's all this stuff that feeds into that. So yeah.
That's why I wanted to tap into that, because I know that I struggle with my own personal judgments on my creativity and my artist ability, and that really is the piece that I wanted people to know, is that we all have, thank you, Kelly. it's someone's heart work. That's what she said.
Yes.
And so that expression is going to be different for all of us.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we're all going to view what we do differently, and maybe not even recognize that that's a creative process, but it really is. But I do really love, you know, it's been very meaningful to learn about how you have the ability to really express your way in a way that I can totally relate to in terms of your art, and how it has gone from a very formalized process of portraiture, which you did some amazing work really with that, you know, and having your stuff in universities and, you know, all of that. But it has changed and shifted so much through your own inner process that I'm actually just curious how you do that, because I actually see that as quite rare.
Yes, and to be honest, it's in terms of being commercial, it's actually not a good idea to be, because often, you know, to be commercially successful as an artist, what galleries are looking for, people are looking for, is actually a style. So they want to follow your style, and I don't even like the word style, but that is the way it is. I think the thing for me is that my work is so personal. It comes from a very emotional place. And when I was doing formal portraiture back in the UK, which is something that I trained in, I did art at university, and so portraiture became my genre of choice. But what I felt was, when I was being commissioned to do portraits, I could do them, but what was missing for me was the real emotional connection with the work, the piece of work that I was doing. Now that kind of fell away when I moved here. There's less of a formal portraiture tradition, I guess, in North America. It's very much a European, I would say, tradition, where people have their portraits done and hung on university walls and so on. I don't see so much of that here, or if that is here, it's usually maybe photography more. And so and also moving countries really did change things for me. And as you know, I went through a lot of big changes at that time, and tragedy too, family tragedy. And so that what I was doing before actually seemed irrelevant. The formal portrait, I thought, what's the point of that? That doesn't hold any meaning for me. And that's when I started to really explore my inner world and getting it out there. And so yes, yeah. And what's wonderful, I think, is to meet somebody, a friend like you, meeting such a good friend who immediately can look at a piece of work and get it. You know,
Well,
there's,
I think I've
you
had
know, when you look at something, you go, I know what you're saying there. I understand that. And, you know, even to have somebody sort of burst into tears, because it's like, I feel that. I feel that too. And there's no words that have been exchanged about it. We're just looking at an image, and it's like, no, I know how that feels. And so that's so meaningful for me too, because it means I've communicated something
perfect.
without, you know, the work has said the 1,000 words that you could discuss forever, but you still wouldn't get across that feeling. So
I know.
so
Well, you're the only
that
person who would appreciate me bursting into tears over something like that.
I was in tears
And you
first.
know what? And on that note, I need to get that piece of art because for me, it's a learning process. And this particular piece of art was actually the first time that I'd really, I mean, of course, I kind of recognized things I liked and I felt an emotional, but not like this one. And I'm going to go get it. So you keep talking, keep everybody entertained for a minute. I just hope I can set this up so that people can see it really well. Now, this is, and it's a print and it's a bit shiny. I recognize that.
Yes.
Probably the one little piece you aren't going to be able to see, which is the part that really struck me, was the here he is. Where is he? He's a little wolf sitting right there with,
Yeah.
right? And so when I first saw that piece of art and I walked into Frankie's room, it was much larger in real life, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
walked to your dining room and you had it on the easel. And I looked at that and I knew immediately what it meant to me. But what was brilliant, I think, about that was the discussion we had ended up having about how it impacted me, what your intention was, and what it meant to both of us. Oh, I knew
Thank you, Kelly.
we were going to
Thank
talk
you.
about. I love this one too. Was
you.
because so can I share just a little bit, Frank?
Sure, absolutely, do.
Okay.
Yes.
So when I walked in, it was on a big easel, and I kind of walked in, and she's right, I did burst into tears because it really hit me right here. This, she, Frankie had captured a personal process and an emotion, and I could feel it and see it in that moment. Now that's happened with lots of your art between us, but this particular piece spoke to me about womanhood. And I know if there's men on here, you know, they may not, you know, understand it, but it might kind of inspire you to see. Sometimes I know for being a woman myself, I can't speak for all women, but I know that Frankie and I kind of share this, I think, a little bit, where we feel like we have to put on our capes every morning because there's always a little bit of a wolf at the door. We're always a little bit more vulnerable, whether it's emotionally or physically, whatever that means for all of us, whether it's being vulnerable to needing to be perfect or vulnerable to not having being able to express yourself in ways that you'd like, or whatever it means. But the wolf at the door and then putting on your red cape. And I thought, that's exactly what I feel like every morning when I wake up, is that I have no, it's not a superwoman cape either.
No.
It's the protection that I feel around my vulnerability. And as we discuss lots of things in this new age of the 2020s with people like Brené Brown, who talks about vulnerability and what that takes. Well, being vulnerable to me takes some courage, and putting on a little red cape with that little wolf at the door, just a little bit, whatever that means at the door, was deeply meaningful to me. So now,
Yes.
when we first discussed that, was that kind of your emotional process at the time?
It was. I mean, obviously that came from a time when I just moved, and I think moving from living in a very urban place like London and Cambridge to BC, to the North Shore here, that really hit me harder than I thought it would. And being in the, you know, as I would see it then and now, actually, in the sort of the real wilderness, the woods, walking in the woods, really struck home to me how those fairy tales, Grimm's fairy tales,
Yeah.
they I walk in the woods here, and I really feel that. You can see the trees, the dense forests that we don't really have so much in Europe anymore, but would have done when Grimm's fairy tales were written. So I really felt those archetypal fairy stories coming to life, moving here, and the sense of perhaps there's danger behind a tree, or you're on your own. You can be very much on your own. It's up to you what you do. Nobody's looking out for you. And also being away from family, being away from familiar things, being away from, and having a very personal tragedy at that time as well, losing my mother in the way I did, the family dynamic, which was very really bad at that time, and it was the first time in my life, I think, where I felt physically very alone and emotionally very alone. Those two things coincided, and the woods here seem to epitomize that sense of you're on your own, you're really on your own. And so so putting on that red cape, like you say, is a sort of, okay, I've got to deal with this. Put on your red cape. And we've said this many times, we've discussed, I'll say, put on your red cape, girl, because, we've got to buckle down and get through this. So you metaphorically put on that red cape and get on with life and find your courage, because you have to. You don't have any choice. You've got people relying on you in other ways. You can't fall apart. You have to carry on. And that red cape epitomized that for me, that sense of buckle down and carry on, and yes, and also that sense of being a child again, that sense of wanting to hold somebody's hand, wanting to hold a big hand there to help you along, but that hand isn't there, and there are times in your life you realize actually that hand's gone. It's your own hand you've got to hold. So I think that all came together in that piece, and you tapped into that. Absolutely, you really did. Yeah,
it was a really impactful piece for me, for sure. But it really taught me how much creativity is a personal expression, and then when somebody really like you embodies that, and then it can touch people, as you say, you've really done a wonderful job at your art or your whatever it is that you've created, whether it's one of my other friends who literally can cook a meal that is like out of this world. Well, that touches me deeply as well, because I can't do that. That's not something I can do. So I totally admire and feel inspired by people who can. Or watching my granddaughter, we do our FaceTime thing occasionally. I'd like to do it again soon too. I think that's an incredibly creative process for her. And so that we all need to learn, how is it that we can embody our creativeness, even if it isn't art,
if it's
for the VSO, or if it isn't wonderful, because it's an essential part of who we are.
Totally.
Can I ask you another art question though? I know along creativity, how is it that you put all your different bodies of work? How is it? I know it follows a personal process, but how do you actually be able to do all those different pieces? Because they've really changed from small to big to huge to contemporary to printmaking to like a million different things, and that just inspires me a lot that you can do.
Well, I think one of the things that happened moving here as well was that I joined a printmaking society and took some courses there, and they were wonderful, some brilliant teachers and very inspiring. And that took me into printmaking, which became a very powerful tool for me, I think, in terms of expression, because with painting I always tend to try and I would say what I do sometimes with painting, because of my portraiture background, is I'll kind of overwork things sometimes, or overthink it. And with the printmaking, I don't do that, because I haven't I haven't sort of been commissioned to do printmaking as such. This is something that I do, and it's much more freeing for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that took me into the printmaking, and then the mask series that I did, which was, I was looking back at family history, and I was looking back at the family dynamic that was difficult at that time, and so it was occurring to me that how we all wear masks every day, and the way we are on the outside.
Oh, I can't hear you. Why can't I hear you? Can you hear me? I've lost your hearing. And I don't know why. Uh-oh. Something's gone wrong. And I don't know whether it's me or you. Seriously. Can you hear me, Frankie? Oh, there we go. Cancel. Okay. Can you hear me, Frankie? I can't hear you. Oh, Frankie, we can't hear you. They can hear me. So I'm struggling to, I can't hear you. So I don't know if your microphone's gone off. But not Frankie. Thanks, Kelly. I appreciate that. Lost sound. Yes. I don't know why. It's lost sound is on your phone. Turn off copy link. Cancel. Don't know where you went. Oh well, I'd better if you can, Frankie, if you can sort out your sound, that would be great. Because we can't hear you anymore. Whereas they can still hear me apparently, which is kind of sad. Well, then what I'll do, maybe Frankie, why don't you log out and try to log back in? Here. Okay. So now let's go, and we'll ask Frankie back in a minute. Hopefully the sound will be able to come on. I'm sorry, you've had some real tech difficulties today. But I always find her incredibly inspiring. Oh, here, hang on. I'm going to see if we can do this again. And what I also want to put out there while we're trying to reconnect with Frankie, can you hear us now? Yes, we
can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We're back.
I know that happened to Flora and when at the Confidentially Anxious group one day too, and it was actually quite funny. But I was just going to say to everybody that in a few minutes, when we've sort of wrapped up a little bit, I'd really love for everybody to put in their word on how they're creative and what their creative expression is, because I'd love to hear from, and I'm going to actually read them out. So if you could do one word, mini sentence, anything like that, I'd love to know, how you express creativity. Now, I know some of you are going to go, oh, I don't want to say that because it's not really artistic. Don't do that. No judging. Because I think it is a human process. We've gone right since the beginning of time to express ourselves in different ways. So, and I know my cousin, and I saw her on here earlier. I think I can see her scrolling up and down, but my cousin's an amazing person, and so is my mom. And I think maybe I inherited this a little bit, is that my creativity comes out in different ways. It's in a multitude of different ways. Like my mom, she really cooked well, and man, could she decorate a Christmas tree. And she was an incredible hairdresser and a florist and did weddings, and she was a seamstress. And so her creativity she wouldn't say, oh, I'm an artist, but you know what? She was an artist, and she really did an amazing job of all that. My cousin's the same, and her whole family, they all do different things, but my cousin is a wonderful seamstress as well, but she also decorates beautifully, and her house is warm and cozy, and then that's a creative process. She's a great gardener too. So
yes, Yes.
here, those are still expressions of our soul and the essence of who we are, and what's important is creating beauty. And I know for myself that I have a huge value around beauty in terms of how things look beautiful to me. Like, and it's always different. And of course, I'm judged a lot on what I think is beautiful because I like a lot of layers and I like, but anyway, so it's nice to have you back. Oh, I'm glad we can still hear you. So now,
Yes.
can you tell us a little, do you want us to finish off? Because I know that you've been on quite a journey of all these different processes with your different art.
Yes.
And this Christmas, you're actually doing something really special, completely different than it. But would you be willing to share that with us?
Sure. I think I'm writing.
And there's a question for you.
Oh,
a question for Frankie.
what does this say?
It says, Frankie, what piece of advice would you give your past self when you doubted your creativity? Oh, this is not her past self. This is her present self.
What piece of advice would I give myself? I doubt my code. I would say to myself, stop being so silly and get on with it. Now, looking back, I would say, have confidence and keep going, and actually not try and judge every piece that you do, that I do. You know, not everything, I'm talking to myself, not everything I do is going to be a masterpiece. Not everything I do is going to be necessarily good at all. But it's not about the final result. It's actually about the process. And it's often not until you look back that you can see what you were going through and you can see that there's some good things in it. Sometimes there's a lot of work that I've done and it's down in my studio and it's put away and I think I will never look at that again. It's absolute crap. And then, and then I get it out later, even a year or a couple of years later, I think actually that wasn't so bad. And so I think trying not to judge and trying to be, just go through the process.
I think that's a really important piece, but it's really hard for a lot of people not to judge themselves if they feel insecure about their work or whatever it is that they're doing or producing.
Whatever, yes.
And I think that's a really hard thing to get over. And I think it's recognizing that there isn't a standard for creativity. It's all creative. And
maybe it is just in the doing. And it's not in the end result.
It's in the doing.
Yeah.
You know? And so if you can get out of the fact that you're doing it for anybody else, and that's the piece, Frankie, that you've taught me, and even more recently, is it's in the doing, it's in the process, is that the human expression comes out. And it's, you always say to me, I'm not actually really doing it for anybody else. I'm actually doing it for me. I think that is such a brilliant question that Kelly asked.
Yes, thanks, Kelly, for that.
And she says, thank you for sharing your heart. Brilliant woman. That's like, because it's true. Like you really now have gotten out of that headspace that you're doing it commercially, that you're doing it to sell it, or you're doing it for anybody else out of yourself. And maybe that's the trick in the whole thing. When you feel like you don't want to put it out there and you need courage in some way to do it.
Yes.
If you get out of that and realize, well, but you're doing it for yourself.
Exactly. And it doesn't matter
what anyone else thinks.
Because you can't fail. It's always,
not failure.
It's doing it. Yeah.
Oh, and that's brilliant. Oh, thank you for sharing that, because I think that that's a really important point. And that's kind of what I hope that everybody gets, is that creativity is not something that other people can judge. That's why it's also different.
It is.
It's so beautiful, and it's what makes us all unique and special.
Yes.
And if we can really embody that piece and recognize that our uniqueness needs to be brought to the world. It's our gift.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I got that right. That part? I think so now,
Christmas, I'm writing a book for my grandchildren. And and so it's becoming an obsessive process, because I've started writing down memoirs and thinking about it all down, and it's become very obsessive for me. I wake up at 4 a.m. and I've got to write something down because it's come to me in the night. So
That's beautiful.
that's what I'm doing. And yeah, it's writing's an interesting process because then again, I try not to judge what I've written before. If I did, I'd change every single sentence as I go.
Yeah.
But I kind of think, no, just write it, just write it, just write it, write it, just get it down, and
Yeah.
then
And edit it later.
get somebody else to look at it, and then edit it afterwards.
No,
Yeah,
are you also illustrating? Are you illustrating this book as well for them?
I am. I'm illustrating, so it's stories and illustrations. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the creativity in terms of your own kids' expressions of what they're creative, like, you know, like what do you say to them about it as well?
About their creativity.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
well, they are
expressing.
so, yes. Well, I'm talking about my grandchildren here, my 3 young grandchildren, most creative beings I know. You know, that every moment of every day is lived as some sort of creative. It's either making up games or stories or making a pile of leaves into a hut in the garden. You know, whatever it is, it's something creative is happening all the time. And if we could all stay in that state and not grow up, I think like Picasso said,
But isn't that true?
becoming
Actually,
a child again.
the mind of a child without
Yeah.
the judgment of what it is that you're creating. And
Yes.
that young girl actually won the award just for the COVID Christmas card of the year.
Right.
Complete, you know, expression of what it felt like for her to
Yes.
be in this past year. And it won this incredible award. And it was just her not judging, just creating something. And I think that that's true. But I think that's about a lot of things, not just about creativity, but being in the heart of our childhood and childhood selves in terms of the simplicity of things. The truth is simple. And I think that's a good answer also, you know, to Kelly's question of how do you sort of don't doubt yourself, is be in the mind of a child where you're creating without judgment for yourself.
Yes. Take out that adult filter.
Yeah. And you know what,
Yes.
and all the filters are huge inside all of us.
Yes.
From our parents, from school, from, you know, from whoever, you know, has a judgment or an opinion about what we do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it kind of makes us feel afraid. So we need to get out of that, like children do. They just do it.
But just do it and then move on. Move on.
Well, that's what we're going to say to you, is just do it, whatever it is. It's your happy in your creativity. I've got to get something out this afternoon. Oh, and I know, even like I just saw that, you know, one of my nieces just came on, and I hope it's okay that I mention her because she just embodies creativity, being a mama. She is the most creative mama I've ever seen with her kids, and I think that
Great. Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's ourselves. I mean,
Yeah.
hard on ourselves, but anyway, that's a topic. But what I'd like to know too is, can anybody just please throw in some words, and so we can see them, and Frankie and I just kind of want to mention them to everybody about how you see you expressing your creativity. How does that come out in your life? And identify with, because this is meant to be a community, and I want to hear more from all of you as well. So can anybody do that? How about you start us off? Because you're one of the most creative girls I know. No comment.
No comment.
Come on, you guys.
Thinking.
Everybody's
thinking.
What is it that
search yourself sometimes to come up with those answers, you know?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
You've got to search through your thoughts and feelings and
I think I could describe my creativity in a little bit of curating.
Decorating the house.
In the morning when I make it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Wrapping presents. That's great.
Wrapping presents.
Absolutely.
Decorating the house. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. And these all things are
fabulous.
Things that feed your soul, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I decorate my house. I actually am creative when I clean it, for God's sake. Around, I put them in a different place, and yeah, I know that that's really good for my soul. The way you put outfits together. Who, me or you? The way you put outfits together. Well, okay, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. No, that's fashion industry, baby. based on that. So,
Totally. And that's what I love about all of us too, is that, you know, like we get these fashion things, but I know that I don't dress in a fashion. I again, like I house. You know, Kelly says, you. Thanks, Kelly. That's really nice. I wouldn't want to start a day without a scarf. And I've got my friendship necklace on. Okay, and Janet says, I noticed my daughter at age 10 be hesitant to express her creativity, and she compares herself to her sister or me. Maybe I find her to
need to find her.
be creative. Yeah, maybe she's got a different way of doing it rather than judging, you know, judging her, comparing herself to others. I just want to keep an eye on the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I dance. You know, part of my degree was actually dance, and I would consider myself at least as much a dancer as a visual artist, really, although I'm old now. But back in the day, back in the day, dancing, and even now, you know, we put music on, and as soon as it comes on, you just want to get up and dance. Just
and it's so
close your eyes and let the music take you. So something
yeah.
like, you don't have to have any special talent to do that. Just move your
But
body.
all and dance is it for sure, Kelly. And we're all agreeing on that because I think there's a lot of dancers in this group for sure. I know my cousin, my cousin in England, she loves to dance. And we like the music. And oh my God, when we were younger, we were always dancing up a storm. I love it as well. And Kelly does. And I mean, I think that is actually, if you think about it, everywhere in the world, historically, has some kind of movement that is or some kind of somatic process, which is an emotional process, an expression.
And primitive again, primitive.
Yeah. Of course, we formalize it to a degree, and yet at the same time, that, you know, that primitive expression, you know, really speaks to me a lot.
Yes.
From moving my body, whether it's just hearing that one piece of music that you can't sit still.
Exactly. Yes.
So it's kind of nice. I really appreciate everybody sharing their stuff here, you guys. I'd like to send me some more. Send me some more. Good one, Kelly says. And yes, it is, Kelly. I agree with you. Dancing is we haven't even mentioned it before. Oh my God. And it's so big. And actually, Frankie trained in dancing as well as I trained. And I know lots of you have trained, and I trained right up until I was 20 when I was injured. Dancing has never stopped being one of my main loves.
No. It's in your soul.
Absolutely. It's another soul expression.
Yeah.
And I don't judge what it looks like.
No.
In
your own skin.
I don't care. At my age, it doesn't matter anymore. Anyway. Oh my God. Anyway, well, I would love to know, does anybody else have anything else that they would love to say about creativity? And I do hope that I've imparted creativity in some way, or an understanding of that with my children as well. And I think, okay, if I look at them, I think, okay, well, wait a minute, let's just go through this. My oldest is a writer, and he writes and writes and writes things he believes in, and emotional. He stands up for justice with his writing, and I think that's an incredibly creative process. And I see him being creative with food. Oh man, I just want him to feed me. Oh my God. And being creative as a dad. So it's not just a woman thing, this creativity, you know, because I've only got sons. I've got 4 of them.
Yeah.
And my second son, oh my God. So that's Kelly's husband.
Yes.
He is very creative in terms of, he's always drawn boats, houses, things like that. And he still works in boats and fixing, creating boats and making them more beautiful. And to him, and so he's following his passion in terms of, he might not always see it every day as creative, but it really is.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
And my third son really is a lot like me. He curates his house. He puts up the cupboards, and that's his creative process. And my youngest son is really amazingly creative in his thought processes. He would be a stellar think tank person. His brain is just creative a million times a day. Oh, and Jordan, he does cooking too. Cooking. Who knew? Thank you, Kelly. Always drawing, she says, and always cooking.
Well, that's very creative. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's great.
And then I'd love to encourage my youngest son to to do more with his thinking, because I have never seen anybody's brain so creative as his brain. I mean, he must have 50 thoughts a day of things that are creative and could be different. And
yes,
not
yes.
everybody's brains work like that.
But
And
I think it's so important for, I mean, for everybody, you know, especially, you know, the mental health is a big topic at the minute, but especially with COVID and the
Mhm.
stuff, the challenges that people are going through. I think if you tap into your creative side through this,
Very healthy.
you can actually use this time really to think deeply, to take those quiet moments.
Yeah.
Stop the other distractions that we have of, you know, going to the shops every day or whatever we do, you know, to actually say, no, actually, this is a time, this is a gift now, this time to really get creative and do whatever it is.
I think that's true. Yeah, and I think that's true because we are kind of in this emotional crisis as well, where it is impacting us so much. I mean, I know it has myself, and I'm a therapist. Sometimes it's hard to sort of work through, okay, well, what am I really feeling? That sort of, oh. But as you and I have talked a lot of the time, if I get moving on something, I create something, you know, whether it's the gardening or whatever it is, it's so therapeutic. So I would like to suggest that for all of us, there is sort of an unknown therapy, you know, to the processes and things that we do that we might not even necessarily are aware of, but they're there. It's a cathartic. And I think that's what comes out in your art, and that's what we've been talking about, is how all of your art has been some sort of cathartic process, whether it's been sadness, a change, or a joy, or a baby arriving, or children, you know, whatever.
Yes.
So, you know, a cathartic process is also expressing joy as well as things that are painful. Yeah.
Yes.
I can see that in a lot of your art, you know, and how you feel. So
yes.
Anyway, so does anybody out there want to share anything with Frankie and I about how they see, like, what's part of their persona in terms of being creative? I just want to keep an eye on the time so that it doesn't go off on us. Oh, good, we've got time because we started late because of our problems. So, or is it that you know, help your children be creative? And I know one thing that's really important, and I know this is kind of my thing because I'm a therapist, but I think emotion is a creative process as well. I mean, I believe that even as a counselor, that is a creative process that I'm engaging in with somebody. It's a creative process between two people.
Right. Yes.
Create something.
Yeah.
And whether it's a different perspective, whether it's a healing moment or whatever, that in itself is a creative process. And that's something that we can do with our children as well when they're young, you know, and
yeah.
You think that's true?
I do. And I think I'm thinking of you know, my daughter and son. I think they're both extremely creative, as you know, and certainly, you know, my daughter, she's nature and making things from the natural world and connecting her to her roots, Celtic roots as she sees it, exploring all that is really important to her. But I remember when the school that she went to, when she started art lessons, and maybe this goes back to a comment that was made earlier, how do I help my daughter or somebody get through this? When she actually started learning how to draw or having these formal art lessons, she suddenly froze. Because they'd put the work up, and then if hers didn't look like the object they were supposed to be drawing or something, she'd come home and say, well, I can't do it and I'm not good. And if it's graded as well, you know, from A to D or something, and you get a D, it can really put you off it. And I actually think in art education, it needs to be really careful with that sort of thing, because so many people can come away thinking, well, I'm not, like you said again, I'm not an artist, I can't draw. But it's not about that, you know.
I can totally identify with that, because you've just brought back a memory. As oh my goodness, memories just keep bringing by me whenever I talk to you, Frankie. Is that I failed grade 8 art. How do you fail grade 8 art?
I know.
Like, seriously, that's so subjective. I did every project.
Kind of grade. You think, I can't do it. I can't do art, and yet for so many people, there's something inside that's crying out.
Yeah.
be a
It's
poet
true.
or,
It's
or you know, like honestly, it's just, it can be very destructive, that kind of education, and that's a shame. Art education really needs to be to look at how they, or really, or shouldn't grade.
Can you really, at the end of the day, can you really actually grade a creative process? You can't really. And it's like what Janet's just telling us too, which I love, because this is what I see on your Instagram, and I totally get what you do. Is she goes outside with kids to play, and she finds, you know, anything in nature, you know, and they build fairy houses or they find them. And I know that, you know, those are kinds of things that, you know, we've done with our kids as well. We used to go find for troll houses. So, and Kelly says, you know, this is a really good point. And she says, I always find that there's a hiccup with my creation process because I'm constantly worried about how it will land or be received.
Yes.
Love the tip that you aren't doing this. Well, okay, but let's be honest. She's not doing it anymore. So it's been a learning process, because I know that there's loads of times in life that you, I, all of us have really felt like we're worried about putting it out there of what people think. Is that not true, Franks?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Totally.
How did you get past that? Because I know that maybe getting past that is actually a really new thing for you.
I think it's a maturity thing. I think I don't care anymore.
I know.
You think, and you also think, who are the people judging you? What do they really know? You know, I've become very cynical in my old age, you know, about politics and a lot of things. I sort of think, well, do the politicians know any better than us? Well, probably not. They're just people living their lives with their own faults and, you know, whatever it is. I think I'm letting a lot of stuff go by me now that I'd worry about before. That as well. I think, who are these people judging? You know, unless you really respect somebody's opinion and you really know that they're on your side, I wouldn't care what people think. You know, I care people I respect and I love and I know are on my side. I respect and listen to. Apart from that, forget it.
So they're going to give you authentic, honest input or feedback in a loving way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's accepting criticism when it's valid, but ignoring the rest. I think that's really,
But I think that's something we learn. I mean, I didn't feel that in my 20s or my 30s or even my 40s.
No.
It was sort of getting close to the end of my 50s that I kind of really could embody that, you know, there's parts of things I really don't care what people think anymore. No, I'm sure that that's always a good thing, but I actually really don't. So I did wake up on this morning, but there are a lot of days, you know, I really don't care.
Who cares?
Oh, Janet says, yes, I feel like it's scary to put it out there. I feel like it starts young when you get told stay in lines or do this. You know, and you're right, Janet, it really shouldn't be like that. But we're conditioned so much through our socialization, schooling, parents even who judge us and shut us. It is a shutdown. You know, when I went to Choices a long time ago, they call it a wound on the heart. Until we got so many little wounds on our hearts, we can't even express ourselves.
Right, yeah.
And so then unpacking those and becoming your authentic self, and I think is a little bit in answer to what the experience you've gone through, I think, and what Kelly's saying is really learning your authentic self, like what really is the simple truth about yourself, I think, and then it doesn't matter anymore. Did I say that right? Do you think that that's true, Frankie? Oh, maybe we lost her again.
No, I'm back.
Oh, there you're back. Oh, it's your Wi-Fi. She's having trouble with Wi-Fi, guys. But would you say that was true? That really becoming your authentic self is a lifelong expression, and then you stop judging yourself when you really feel like you know yourself?
Yes,
Does that make?
It does. It does, and I think for my experience, because my mother died. Talking very personally here, but my mother died very unexpectedly in quite tragic circumstances. And I think at that point, it brought it home to me how short life is. And it actually can change from the morning till the night. You know, the morning you wake up and you're one way, and by the night time, things have gone 180 degrees. So
I get that.
You actually owe it to yourself to live your authentic life now and not tomorrow or any. You have to do it now because there might not be a tomorrow, and that was brought home to me very, very forcefully with that.
I think that is probably the most succinct comment of the whole hour, which is about creativity, which is that tapping into that piece of really your authentic self and what wants to come out of that is really where I think happiness comes from. Less stress. I think that when you're living that, you have better relationships, and I just think that that's true. So I think that if we even actually just leave you on that note, which is authentic self, because
yes.
creativity will be found in there. And I think also it's where you find your vulnerability and courage, and you don't actually need to impress anybody else. It's all about what you want to put out in the world, because it's your gift in some way.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, Frankie, have you got any other little wisdoms or little nuggets in there that you'd like?
Well, I think we've covered a lot, and
we have.
Yeah, we've covered a lot, haven't we?
Yes. Wonderful. And I see somebody here who's just come on, and we're at the end of the program. But I'm going to try desperately to save it this time.
Yeah.
Please hope I don't lose it like last week, because that was terrible. And luckily I'd filmed it, but I couldn't get on today with too much technology going on to actually make on a different computer.
Oh.
But this has been really fun, Frankie.
Thank you for a lovely, lovely chat.
It's been really good, and I love our little conversations.
And thank you to everyone for joining and making comments too.
I know. Thank you
so much. Very special. Thank you
for joining us and for your really good questions. And Frankie and I are definitely really curious. I think that's the other thing that creative people have in common, is that we're curious. So curiosity is like, it guides you, doesn't it? Like through to a creative process.
It does.
Curiosity about yourself, about your process, about your feelings. Anyway, so we just want to say thank you to all of you for showing up, asking good questions, commenting. This is really what really speaks to my soul. And this is a creative process for all of us as well. So Frankie, thank you for being such a beautiful and being brave and joining me on here. All of you for listening to our old girl wisdom. And we'll call ourselves the wise women, the elders. But anyway, to all you people, thank you so much for joining us. I really love you all, and let's do it after Christmas. Oh, and we get to say Merry Christmas, because next week we won't be on. That's Christmas week. I wasn't sure if I should do one next week. If everybody has an opinion, please tell me. But the other thing I'd like to invite everybody to do is, if you'd like to join, like Frankie and I have done, and chat and converse about something that's important to you, then send me in a message and tell me what your topic you want your topic to be. And if you want to join, I would love that. And that's sort of build that sense of community for all of us, if we all feel like that we're part of this. And because I think every conversation, should be important. And I mean, every conversation is, because we're human. We all want to connect. So thank you all so very much. And I love it. Thank you so much for joining, everybody. And we'll see you after Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.
Christmas.
Okay, and I'll see you soon. Take care, guys.
Bye.
I'm going to make sure that I don't lose the video. Okay.